All right, it's the top of the hour, so we'll get started right on time. Thanks everyone for being here at this Canadian NABat Town Hall, where we really want to hear from you today. But before that, we'll have a couple of presenters lined up. I'm Jordi Segers. I'm the Canadian Bat White Nose Syndrome Bat Health Program Coordinator with Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, and Bethany Straw from the USGS NABat is here as well as a bunch of other speakers who will introduce themselves as we go along. So I'll first start off by passing it on to Bethany to provide a bit of overview of NABat. So go ahead, Bethany.
Hi everyone, just a quick reminder, I do hear a little bit of background noise, so if folks could just mute, thank you very much. I was going to try to quickly see if I can change the settings so that we don't hear a ding every time someone joins, but I'm not sure I can quickly. There we go. I think I found a solution. Hopefully, we'll see how that works. Okay, well, thanks again, everyone, for joining. I'm Bethany Straw. I am the NABat Assistant Coordinator with the U.S. Geological Survey. And I'm just going to give a brief overview of what is NABat for those of you who may be unfamiliar. Just as a quick note, this is going to be extremely high level. There's obviously many details that are underneath and behind all the things I'm going to cover today, which you'll have plenty of opportunity to reach out or find ways, or you'll learn about some ways that you can find more information as you have interest today. So just to dive right in, NABat is a multi-agency, multinational, long-term monitoring program to assess status and trends of North American bats. We seek to accomplish this and improve the state of conservation science for bats through standardized protocols, a unified sample design, and integrated data analysis. So put in some simpler terms, or maybe more direct terms, we are seeking to increase the quantity and quality of data on North American bats, and we want to make these data discoverable. I'm hearing a little background noise. If folks can just remember to mute their lines. Thanks. So we want to increase the quantity and quality of data on North American bats, and we want to make these data discoverable so they can be accessed to solve bat conservation problems at multiple scales. And then as a program, we use these data to provide regular updates on the status and trends of North American bats. There's a long and rich history to NABat that actually goes back to before 1999, not all of which is represented on the slide. There's many details and not enough room for all of it. But I just wanted to show something that kind of shows a bit of that history and what has led up to where we are now. About to head into calendar year 2022, where we'll be releasing the first range-wide status and trends results for a suite of 12 species as our first release. And let's see. So what is NABat? It's many things. And so I wanted to quickly talk about kind of what are the 5 main pillars, if you will, of the program. So NABat is a network. It's a collection of people that are invested in bat monitoring in one way or another, that work collaboratively and develop partnerships. It's also survey protocols for multiple survey types. So having a standardized data collection method can help improve the quality of data. It's a database, so we can aggregate and make these data discoverable. A sampling frame, so we have a master sample for the entire North American continent that allows us to prioritize sampling in random order, and analytical support. Sorry about that. So about the network quickly, currently what is observable through our partner portal in the NABat network, we have over 650 projects, 813 registered users, and 165 partnering organizations. One of the motivations for wanting to get on a call with you all today is we know that this is not everything, and that there's a lot of effort that's going on regarding bat monitoring in Canada that is not observed on our maps or in our partner portal or database. And there's a couple of reasons why we want to improve that. One is it's a means for our Canadian partners to better find each other and work together and develop new partnerships and collaborations. But it also provides opportunity through our platform and through hub networks and other means to strategize and optimize sampling plans between partners and organizations. And so a divide and conquer, or creating economy of scale. And so we want to invite more folks to participate in our network so that we can improve collaborations and expand collaborations and efficiencies. There are multiple ways to get involved in NABat, and depending on where you are, what you're interested in, and what your capacity is, I just wanted to, instead of going through those options, wanted to direct you all to nabatmonitoring.org, and there's a button at the top that says Get Involved, and it gives you a really great overview and means to plug into those different opportunities, some of which you'll hear about later today. Very quickly, just wanted to note that we have survey protocols and accept multiple data streams. So it's not just, sometimes I talk to folks and they think it's just stationary acoustics. And we work on and accept into the partner portal and the database mobile acoustic data, stationary acoustic data, capture records, and internal and external colony counts. And we're also working on expanding the database all the time. And so it is, this is what we currently have. And as there is a need arises for modifications, both in how we organize and collate these data and make them accessible, but we've also already have an example of adding a new data type. So there's potential that that could happen in the future. The master sample originally was created as a land-based sample. There wasn't a need to see that go offshore, but it is the grain size for the master sample is 10 by 10 kilometer cells, and they there has already been a random draw of the cells that prioritizes them in random order. So it enables a random sample or random sampling across the continent. But I just wanted to quickly note that we are extending that frame offshore, largely driven by interest in monitoring along the coastline and offshore related to offshore wind development. I'm not going to go through all the details, but this is mostly a slide to show that NABat data can support analyses at multiple scales and for multiple use cases. Some of these are following, some of these data that we have in our database that support this follow the NABat protocols and sample design, and some of them do not. And the database allows us to distinguish between the two, and others, third parties, can request them for specific analyses that they want to request and filter those data or search those data as it suits your needs. And then finally, just quickly about the database and our partner portal, you can add that nabatmonitoring.org link. You can find your way to the partner portal and start exploring the maps, visualizations, and even request data, create an account and request data. But just wanted to touch on a few things. We have over 55 million records currently in the database across multiple data types. We allow for complex user permissions, so users that contribute their data get to control how and when their data are shared and with whom. We have a dynamic mapping and data visualizations that we are working to improve and expand the utility of all the time. Collaboration and planning tools, so means to create that economy of scale that I mentioned. And then upload templates that allowed us to standardize and collate data from multiple sources. Automated reporting, third-party data requesting, and we have an open API and an R package for those that have interest in using those tools. But I will stop there. pop my email address on the screen momentarily. I can put it in the chat as well, but I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to our next speaker.
Thanks, Bethany. Yeah, great to have an overview of NABat. Of course, there's much more to learn, and I'm sure we're going to organize more webinars in the new year on different topics of NABat, as well as Bethany mentioned. You can visit the website and you can get a lot more information there. This is really just a quick snapshot. So now we're going to get a bit of a snapshot of just some Canadian perspectives on NABat. And I'll kick it off just briefly by saying what from the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, from my national coordination perspective on NABat is. And then we have a couple of questions for you as well to fill out through a tool. So I coordinated the National Bat Health Program, and the goal of that program is to promote healthy and resilient, diverse and self-sustaining bat populations in Canada, and also to promote and coordinate consistent monitoring methods, so through the use of national and continental monitoring programs, and NABat, of course, is the prime example of that. So we work with Environment and Climate Change Canada, and we help them deliver their responsibilities on the mandate for Canadian bat health. And so, in a way, I am kind of the Canadian national coordinator for NABat as well. So you can, if you have any questions about NABat, you can contact Bethany or Brian Riker directly. But if you're in Canada, you can go through me as well. I might be able to answer your questions, or if not, then I'll forward you on to the right people within the NABat team to answer those questions. So now I'm going to share my screen if I can. Here we go. One moment, please. Okay. Can you see this screen that says what type of organization do you represent?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to ask you to quickly go to menti.com and then type in this code 25617056, and then you can answer this question. So we just kind of want to know who we're talking to today, what type of organization you represent, and then we have another question right after this. So yeah, just go to menti.com and fill in that code that you see on the screen. And then we should live be seeing, I think I'm seeing it already, kind of what the ratios of organizations are. So let's give that a moment. And this just all helps us understand who we're talking to, what kind of folks are maybe involved in NABat. But towards the end, in the last half hour, we'll be actually asking you as well to fill out questions regarding, are you doing NABat monitoring? And if so, what type of monitoring are you doing? So it looks like we got a lot of folks from federal government. So I kind of assume that's a lot of Parks Canada and a lot of Environment and Climate Change Canada. We've got provincial, territorial governments, lots of NGOs as well. Okay, cool, very interesting. Awesome, thank you very much. So stay here. We're gonna move to the next question. No worries if you haven't filled this one out yet. We get a pretty good idea from just this. Awesome. Okay, so now we want to know too, what region do you work in, or what region do you represent? So note that there are options for US as well, even though this is focused on Canadians. And there's options to fill in more like national as well. Lots of representation in the Atlantic region and Central Ontario and Quebec. A couple of United States. Great, some representation from the territories, West Coast prairies. It seems like we've got folks from all over the country as well as the United States on here. That's awesome. Great. Yeah, nice. I think this is a good representation. This shows everyone live, kind of what, like who is on the call today. All right, thank you very much. So this helps me as well, not just for today, but just to understand in my role as a national coordinator where people are coming from and basically in what areas of the country NABat is the most on people's minds. So thank you very much. You can, we'll come back to Menti later, but you can close it down. We'll use a different code later on for this presentation. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen. And with that, I'll pass it on. So now from the Canadian perspective on NABat, we'll be hearing about the federal perspective from Environment and Climate Change Canada, from Parks Canada, as well as a provincial perspective from the government of Newfoundland. So the next speaker is Mike Anissimoff with Environment and Climate Change Canada. Take it away, Mike.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm just going to share my screen here. So Michael Anissimoff, wildlife biologist, Environment and Climate Change Canada. Thank you for having me here today. My email's on the screen here if you wish to contact me with any questions, concerns, with anything you hear here today. So I'm going to offer you an Environment and Climate Change Canada perspective on NABat. And so to do that, I'm going to, To do that, I'm just going to give you a brief background, a little bit about, our SAR-listed bat species, and then talk about some of our priorities with respect to the schedule of studies that we've identified within our recovery strategy. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about maternity roost and biophysical attributes. And then obviously we're going to finish with a little bit of NABat and filling conservation needs within Canada. So, as everyone is aware, or I assume, in 2014, we published, or 2014, our three of our beloved Myota species were listed under an emergency listing order. And we also published in 2015 a recovery strategy for these three species, and then updated that recovery strategy in 2018. And so we are very aware that it is essential to protect reproductive adults from any kind of mortality, and that really includes anthropogenic mortality, and to identify where these bats concentrate, how they concentrate, and why they concentrate that way. So, with respect to our priorities, we found that in our 2018 recovery strategy that we published, within that is a schedule of studies, and we've identified a few of our priorities in there. And so the key gaps that we're looking for is with respect to the identification of maternity roosts and their biophysical attributes and locations. Although data sharing continues to be an obstacle, and that I think we're all aware of. And so, Environment Climate Change Canada is very encouraging of everyone for the collection and public availability of as much data pertaining to biophysical attributes and maternity roosts as possible. And so also within our priorities is as I mentioned, is reducing adult anthropogenic mortality, and that includes, wind turbines and exclusions from buildings. Obviously we can include forestry in there too, and mining. So we'd also like to, ideally with these priorities, we're also going to reduce the impacts of white nose syndrome on infected and naive populations as the fungus moves its way west to our prairies and into BC and that. And so, with respect to NABat, now to kind of tie in NABat, so NABat provides us with a data sharing opportunity that can contribute to bat conservation. And so we're hoping that, NABat can be used more widely within Canada with increased coverage, outreach, and public engagement. And this also includes the promotion of data and projects currently available through NABat. And so within that, we could include such projects or data with respect to indices of bat species abundance at multiple spatial scales, and improved understanding of the relationships to, between bats and various landscape features, resources, and then stressors. And knowing all of this will obviously aid in our oh boy, something happened here. Apologies, I stopped sharing somehow. Will aid in our ability to raise the public profile of NABat among researchers and the general public and increase usage. And so in the meantime, we're hoping we we may need to do have some encouraging words for researchers to increase the presence and the usage of NABat within Canada, and to demonstrate how these data can be used to conserve bats in Canada. And so I sped that up, and we are absolutely finished. So here's again my information at the start here, and so I look forward to any questions or comments later on as we go through the presentations. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. You're great with your timing. Yeah, I think your final message really hits the mark here, and that's what we're trying to do here as well with the town hall, is really to encourage participation of Canadians with NABat and improve communication between NABat and all the Canadian participants, because there's a lot of value to it. So continuing with a federal perspective, but the perspective from Parks Canada, we've got Kim Borg here to talk about that as well. So take it away, Kim.
Hello there.
Hi.
I'm just going to share my screen. Can you let me know if you're seeing it properly?
Sure. Not seeing it yet.
No?
No, we're just seeing you.
Okay, let me try that again. I'm not used to, okay, so share screen. Oh, here we go.
Things happening now.
How's that?
Yeah, we see it.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay, thanks, Jordi. And yeah, really thank you for organizing this town hall, you and Bethany. I think this is really great opportunity, so thank you. So yes, my name is Kim Borg. I'm the national coordinator for the Parks Canada Bat Community of Practice. And we have membership across the country, and we get together regularly to discuss any bat conservation related issues at Parks Canada. So just to give you a really brief overview, Parks Canada, we've got over 200 Parks Canada places. On this map here, the green blobs are the national parks. We also have one national urban park, and those parks are managed for ecological integrity. We also have 4 national marine conservation areas and 172 national historic sites. And those historic sites are more managed for commemorative integrity to highlight Canada's history. So overall, we've got about 450,000 square kilometers of land that we manage in Canada. So given this large network of Parks Canada places, it's perhaps not surprising that we do have a lot of the Canadian bat species that occur within our Parks Canada places. 42 of our sites have known bat occurrences. And so those are mainly within our national parks, excluding the higher latitude parks or the Arctic parks. And 39 of our sites have confirmed presence of at least one of the 3 SARA-listed species. A lot of the work we do is kind of guided by the recovery strategy that Mike was just talking about, and the action plans that kind of flow from recovery strategies. So Parks Canada develops site-based multi-species action plans for each of our major parks. And these action plans take a holistic approach in that they look at all of the species at risk that occur within a site and prioritize the actions that we can do over a 5-year time period. So for the 23 site-based action plans that we have published for our Parks Canada sites, 22 of them have specific actions for bats within them. So I'm just going to kind of talk about the main themes that we operate under at Parks Canada. So the first one would be education and outreach. So Parks Canada does have quite a large audience to reach out to with a lot of visitors. And we have specialists that do specific education and outreach work related to bats and bat conservation. So we also participate in Bat Week, and this year we did some Instagram posts during that week that reached out to about 75,000 people. Research and collaboration. So Parks Canada partners with various people to do research within Parks Canada places and beyond. In this area, the regional NABat hubs have been really important to kind of collaborate and discuss research and connect people. So the Atlantic Canada Monitoring Hub has been really great that way. And I know that the Alberta Monitoring Hub is about to be established, and there's just a lot of great collaboration and coordination that occurs through those hubs, as well as other means across in other provinces. Here, I just wanted to highlight that one example of some of the more national looking research that we are doing. So we're participating in the Canadian Bat Box project, and that is led by Karen Vanderwolf, and just have several photos there of some of the bat boxes within our national parks. And you'll see kind of some of the little tags sticking out at the bottom are some of the data loggers that we've put inside to measure temperature and humidity to feed into investigating some of the best design and use of bat boxes for bats in Canada. Here's just a map just to visually show you the sites that are participating in that project. So from these little orange and pink dots are the sites. We have 9 of them, ranging from the Atlantic coast out to the mountain parks that are participating in that study. So monitoring and surveys, we do a lot of this type of work to try and contribute to filling knowledge gaps on bats so that we can better protect and manage bats within our Parks Canada places and the broader landscape. Basically, 4 main types of monitoring occur at parks. We identify and assess important bat habitats, so foraging sites, roosting sites, maternity roosts, and hibernacula. We conduct site-based inventories, often with acoustic monitoring for species richness, distribution, etc. Also some migratory movements and mist netting. We do surveys for white nose syndrome in the east, kind of post-white nose, and also in the western sites, looking at baseline data before white nose syndrome hits. And we also do NABat standardized surveys. So I think that we really have a reciprocal kind of relationship here with NABat, where we use a lot of the NABat data to help inform us about the monitoring that we will conduct and want to conduct. And we also kind of, we do feed into contributing our data to NABat. So here are the current sites that contribute data to NABat. We've got about 15 sites and some other sites coming online in the near future. So this is just to give you a visual snapshot of the sites where we do contribute data. And the last area that we do quite a bit of work on is developing guidance and best management practices. One piece we're currently working on is developing guidance for park staff on how to best protect and manage bats in our administered Parks Canada places. A lot of our sites have infrastructure which require maintenance over time, and so we're developing guidelines for staff on consistent processes to follow when encountering bats, individuals or maternity roosts, etc. We also collaborate with many partners. One piece in particular is our wildlife health and management team is currently updating guidelines for safe care and handling of bats within Parks Canada places and beyond. And Jordi is really involved in that piece, as well as protocols for handling bats related for reverse zoonotic transmission related to COVID. So I think for these guidance pieces, we have really found the regional bat hubs and just the links with NABat and kind of establishing that community of bat experts very helpful. So just to summarize, basically what I just said, we find that there's direct links here in NABat and in the work NABat does and in the work that what we're doing, in that we use a lot of the data to inform our work and best inform how to manage on the ground bats for, you know, the best interests of the bats and to minimize impacts. And we really find that the regional bat hubs are a great kind of community and opportunity to allow us to work better together and share information, etc. So that's all I have for you today. And I will pass it over to the next person, and excited to hear more from everyone.
Thank you, Kim. That was great to get that perspective, and also actually great to hear you talk about the NABat Monitoring Hubs, because we'll be hearing about those that are existing in Canada in a bit as well. So thank you. But before we move to the hubs, a little bit more Canadian perspective. So the next speaker is Jessica Humber from the government of Newfoundland, and we'll get a bit of a provincial perspective on NABat. So Jessica, take it away.
Thank you, Jordi. Okay, I'll just get this going.
Perfect.
Perfect. So thanks for having me. Jordi asked me just to share some perspectives on our NABat monitoring efforts here in Newfoundland and Labrador. These started back in about 2016. Just on a very small scale, and we've been trying to build on that ever since. So I'm with the Provincial Wildlife Division, and so our group is currently monitoring 5 of the NABat grit cells in the province, and also supporting efforts by other groups as well, which I'll talk about a little bit more now in a minute. This is what your typical grit cell looks like. This is the one we first established in 2016. Generally, we try to put one stationary acoustic detector within each quadrant and try to target different habitat types in each area, so we can get a better idea of you know, which habitats we're finding bats. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I guess, the value of NABat surveys as far as I see it. So they're really valuable in determining relative abundance, activity levels of bats. We started our monitoring before white nose syndrome started moving throughout our province. So we have the benefit of having pre and post white nose syndrome acoustic data, also to examine habitat use by bats. When you look at this data over many years and sort of at a broader landscape scale, it can provide an indicator of population change. We like that NABat provides a flexibility to fit your provincial or territorial monitoring needs into the NABat framework. So, for instance, NABat has priority cells for monitoring, but individual organizations may have a smaller area of management. So you can take that area of management or the area of land that you're able to reasonably travel within and use that sort of as your, you can kind of go through the mapping process and only selecting priority cells from your area of management. So it's flexible in that way that you can meet both your sort of jurisdictional goals while also feeding into the NABat framework and contributing to the continental scale trends analysis, which makes your provincial efforts or territorial efforts a little bit more far-reaching, which is great. We have found it to be very beneficial in detecting poorly known species, particularly migratory bats. So we knew very little about migratory bats in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we've picked up quite a number of migratory bats, particularly hoary bats, in Newfoundland and also along the coast of Labrador. So we wouldn't have otherwise sort of gained this sort of insight into their movements. It's also helping to track some northern range expansion. So for instance, we've had some acoustic detectors along the coastline up in more northern Labrador around Maine and picking up bat activity there where there was previously no known bats. So as we continue to expand this network of acoustic monitors, we should be able to further track northern range expansion of bat species. Another great benefit that we find with the NABat program are opportunities for partnerships, collaborations, stewardship, and education. So we generally, the Provincial Wildlife Division, we have a certain number of acoustic detectors, and we've been trying to schedule out loans of these detectors to make the best use of the equipment. So we've lent out that equipment to a variety of different groups, and right now we have ENGOs actively doing NABat acoustic monitoring and monitoring bats on their private protected lands. We've been collaborating with Indigenous governments and organizations in the province, some of which have the ECCC's AFSAR funding, or the Aboriginal Fund for Species at Risk funding. So collaborating there. Local community groups have started to get involved in environmental committees. And also there's an outdoor education program within Grossmoor National Park where school-age students are being exposed to acoustic monitoring as well. So we hope to further expand this network, and the map just sort of shows an indication of where our acoustic efforts are currently falling.
Jessica, there's a sharing button that you can hit, the hide button that's covering the map right now. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. So, like I said, we're looking to further expand the NABat monitoring capacity in the project, and I think we've done a pretty good job of doing that over the last couple of years. And I have to attribute a lot of that to a recent project that we collaborated on with the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative Atlantic office. So prior to this current initiative to form the Atlantic Bat Hub, the CWHC Atlantic completed a 2-year habitat stewardship program project. And the focus of that was to provide resources to support NABat monitoring, and specifically the acoustic monitoring. So that involved the development of an acoustic monitoring curriculum. There's available on their website this acoustic guide document, which pretty well gives a step-by-step process from purchasing your initial equipment to analyzing and reporting your results to how to get yourself into acoustic monitoring. So that's a great resources. Jordi and team also put together these great videos. There's a series of 18 training videos available on their site as well, which are incredibly helpful. And they also put off multiple online training workshops here in our province, but also throughout the maritime provinces as part of this project. So that was incredibly helpful, and it's seen us be able to increase our capacity for monitoring and increase interest amongst other groups as well. It also involved the purchase of a few additional bat detectors and some data analysis support as well. So I just wanted to mention that because these resources are available for all within Canada and abroad, of course. And I just wanted to finish by, I guess, you already mentioned maybe trying to mention any challenges or hurdles we might be facing with NABat. So I would suggest that one of the biggest things is just being careful with automatic ID software for acoustic monitoring. Manual vetting of the call files is so important. Because the automatic ID software can greatly vary in the results and the IDs of bat species it gives you, depending on what settings you've chosen, how liberal or conservative you want the ID to be, what your bat classifiers you choose, and all kinds of different settings. So it's important to manually look at these call files and also to accurately report what settings you've used and how you've actually analyzed and determined certain bat species to be present. One of the biggest challenges is the difficulty in distinguishing northern myotis from little brown myotis. In Newfoundland and Labrador, these are our only 2 resident hibernating bat species. So that is a challenge, and particularly within cluttered habitats, it's really difficult to tell the two apart, which makes it sort of difficult to, from a population monitoring perspective, I would say. Another issue is that with all these new groups becoming involved with acoustic monitoring, of course, everyone is reporting the results, which is great. But it's important that any IDs of new species known to an area or poorly known species really should be looked at by experts. And like I mentioned already, to make sure that the methods that you've used in analysis and recording the calls are made very clear in the reporting, because we want to know sort of how much weight we can give to different reports that you might see circulated on the results of acoustic monitoring in a particular area. So that's one important thing to keep in mind. I would say that collection of acoustic data for NABat is quite easy, where bat populations are still quite strong, as they are in many places in Newfoundland and Labrador still. But manual ID can be incredibly time consuming. So in our province, there's been a real limitation on the resources that we have to manually ID all these calls. So it means backlogs of huge amounts of data, like many tens of thousands of calls that need to be manually verified. And there have been delays in uploading it to NABat. We are looking at a couple of different options to try to streamline that process without sacrificing the quality and confidence in the IDs. But that's one challenge to keep in mind. Also, just to understand the limitations of acoustic monitoring in general. So acoustic monitoring and the NABat program, it has great value in it, but it also can't answer all of our questions. So it shouldn't really replace all other forms of monitoring. So trapping, mark recapture, colony counts, radio telemetry, and so on. All of those are still important and have an important place. So acoustic monitoring, I would say, is not meant to replace, it's just meant to supplement our information about bat populations. And finally, I have found personally, there is a real learning curve in getting involved in the NABat process and acoustic monitoring, but there's lots of resources available to help you along the way. So with that, that's pretty well all I have to say, but if anyone has any questions or just wants to discuss anything, feel free to contact me at the email address provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. That was great. Also great to hear about those challenges and hurdles. And we're definitely here to address those. And I find that often when I get questions from people doing NABat monitoring and I forward them on to Bethany and her team, they're always very good at addressing those questions. The database, the website's always being updated to become more user-friendly and to be improved. And it was also a great segue to what we're talking about next, which is talking about NABat Hubs. So hopefully my computer can handle this. So you should be seeing my slide now, hopefully, about Atlantic NABat Hub. So Jessica already mentioned the Atlantic NABat Hub. We'll also be hearing about the BC Alaska Hub and the Alberta Hub. So I'll be very brief about our Atlantic Hub because Jessica already did a great job talking about how that has helped Newfoundland. So this includes, of course, all the Atlantic provinces, Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. And I should also say that this effort was really led by Tessa McBurney, who worked with us under funding of the Habitat Stewardship Program from Environment and Climate Change Canada. With that funding, we were able to build these amazing resources that Jessica mentioned. So all of these videos, the guide for bat monitoring. Bethany put a link in the chat already, a direct link to these resources. So really, these resources are it's training researchers resources that guide you from beginning to end on how to do NABat monitoring. Both the videos and the monitoring guide, they complement each other. they are written for Atlantic Canada, but really the only part that is Atlantic specific is the species that we cover. So the identification of bat species only covers the species that we know are in Atlantic Canada, but otherwise every other aspect of these guides are applicable to everyone, really. So the important thing about having a hub, well, the benefits of it is that we're forming a network within a network, and you help learn from each other, and you understand who your network is, and you can draw information from them. You can ask for second and third opinions on anything related to NABat. But it is really important that you have a regional coordinator that coordinates the communication, that sends out any sort of resources, and helps get information that starts with the USGS's NABat, get that out to everybody. So at the USGS, as Bethany said, we might not necessarily know who all the players are within NABat, but if they know who the Atlantic or who the regional hubs are and who the coordinators are, they can send any information down to them, and then those hub coordinators can forward that information on within their hub. And that's really what this network is relying on. In addition to having this hub, Tessa McBurney and myself, and we're encouraging others as well to participate on the NABat working groups that are in place, and you can find more information about that on the NABat website. But I'll pass it on now to Cori Lausen with Wildlife Conservation Society Canada to talk a little bit about the BC and Alaska monitoring hub that has recently been launched. So take it away, Cori.
Okay, thanks, Jordi. I don't have anything to share for screens. And you're right, it just very recently launched, so I don't have a lot to say about it yet. But we are excited to be working with Alaska, and particularly with Karen Blavis, who is monitoring in Southeast Alaska with NABat grid cells that she has also incorporated a kind of a citizen science component to transects. And so we have driving transects in British Columbia as well. And that's a little bit, I think, unusual for the West in general right now. Not a lot of transects, but that is something that we're hoping to keep doing and ultimately help promote them, because I think as part of the hub, it's kind of getting everybody doing the same thing so that we can make greater inferences about the data and our trends. And so at this point, we have what we've called, just at this point, a steering committee. And that involves some, at this point, some USGS folks, our Ministry of Environment, Canadian Wildlife Service, and of course, WCS Canada, and Karen from Alaska. And this steering committee, we're really talking about many things, including how to kind of optimize what we're doing in the West. And hopefully over time, that will be a bigger initiative to incorporate like transect data, for example. And we're just trying to, at this point, get kind of an understanding of what it is that our hub's going to look like, starting with funding. So we're securing, hoping to secure some more funding, especially with Karen in Alaska, to kind of bring our data together. And we're already deploying our detectors basically in similar ways, and we're talking about things like similar covariates that we would be using and so on. And so I don't have a lot to share other than the fact that that we are getting started on this, and hopefully we'll be able to report more eventually next year.
Thank you, Cori. Yeah, it's very exciting, and just seeing how these hubs are popping up everywhere. It's really, really great progress. And it's also great to hear as it's a great example that a hub doesn't have to stay within its own country. So BC and Alaska teaming up to form one hub, it just makes sense from a like bat biology perspective. So the hubs, they don't know national or federal boundaries.
No, and it's interesting because we have no grid cells in the BC Northwest. It's just, the area is basically unroaded, right? So to have the Southeast Alaska data fills in a really nice geographic gap for British Columbia to understand bats, even though we don't have monitoring going on in the Northwest. So yeah, so it's a win-win, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Cori.
Okay, thank you.
And next up, we have Lisa Wilkinson with the Government of Alberta, because Alberta is also launching an NABat Hub. So yeah, take it away, Lisa.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'll...
Oh, you just muted real brief.
I'm okay again, yeah. So hopefully this works.
Yep, I'm seeing your screen. Yeah.
Oops, sorry, it went ahead one. How come all these things have to? There we go. Yeah. So as you already said, it's we are a bat hub, but we're an emerging bat hub. So I just wanted to share some of the steps of how we got to be where we're at. So collaboration, and that's what we've all been talking about, and with all the different entities, and that way we've got our own network and coordination. And so I'm with Alberta Environment and Parks, and so we started pretty much the first year, the pilot year for NABat, started sampling, and Parks Canada was off to an early start as well, and we've had a really good relationship with them, and they've always contributed their data towards our provincial, our annual provincial reports. More recently, a couple of other, I guess, players have come to the table. One is the Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute. So it's, I mean, many people, especially from the East, may not know about this. And if you Google it, you'll see it's quite innovative. It's a not-for-profit organization that's been around for a while. It's primarily delivered by the University of Alberta and Alberta Innovates. And they've set about monitoring all sorts of flora and fauna across Alberta in a very systematic way and reporting on it. And so that, as you can see, that's a pretty good fit for what NABat is doing. And then the University of Alberta, I added, even though it's also part of ABMI, because within the University of Alberta, there's a couple of professors, Dr. Aaron Bain and Dr. Martina Kalkunis, who are, you know, with grad students or postdocs might be helping out as well. So we all started talking a little bit more, and one of the things we decided we needed to do was that would be helpful, if for us anyway, was a data sharing agreement. And we're using the ABMI database called WildTracks. And again, you can access WildTracks on the website. There's lots of information there. And so in order to do that, because of all of our agencies, we needed to do an MOU. That was a bit onerous, but we managed to get it done. Mostly time consuming. Not everybody's going to need to do this if you're starting out in a hub, but we did that because we wanted to be able to share this WildTracks database with the advantages of it's all going in the same way. We're hoping it'll have a feature that automatically downloads to NABat, so we can all access the data if we want to do any of our own analyses. We can also individually do our own. I always get help from a contractor to wrap it up and do an annual report with the analysis. At some point in the future, we may look to having an auto ID built into WildTracks, but at this point, we're just starting it out as a database. And there are other contributors too. So the Alberta Community Bat Program, for example, is starting to collect data. And so this makes it really easy for them just to input it into WildTracks, and then it's all there for the provincial database. So just, yeah, in brief, the collaboration considerations, the benefits, I think everyone's probably covered the benefits already because of this consistent approach to monitoring. NABat has the protocols, but having people within your province or your group to help, especially if you're new to it, for example, with ABMI, a lot of the technicians there, they're using ARUs for other species. They may not be as familiar with bats, so we can provide that support, shared resources. I think that's come out as well. Just think, aside from our knowledge, we've got microphones and bat detectors and things that we can share if needed. And as I've already explained, data sharing. Now the challenges are coordination. And this has also been brought up that you do need somebody who can coordinate. I've been the coordinator, I guess, for all the Alberta data since we started. It does take a lot of, it can take a lot of time, and it's more time than I have. So I haven't been doing quite an adequate job. And that's one of the benefits now of the network we're developing is we're at the University of Alberta, Dr. Martina Kalkunas-Ruppel is going to be hiring a postdoc, and part of their responsibilities will be to help coordinate this program. And so there you've got a point person to deal with all the data considerations, as well as coordinating with NABat. Again, that people have mentioned that before, at least the other people with NABat know who to contact for Alberta, and to deal with any issues, concerns. So you do need a coordinator. You can, and maybe it can be a shared role as well, but that's just something that you need to work out as you're developing your hub. And I guess we're an emerging hub. We are a hub, and it's going really well. And now that we're going to have someone who can be more, commit more time to the coordination and liaise with NABat, I think things are going to pick up and go even more smoothly. And as everybody said too, there's a lot of support through Jordi and the NABat folks, and the NABat Hub coordinators have a call once a week, which Bethany runs, and people can come there with their concerns if they want to. So there's a lot of help to get this going, and my email's there just in case you wanted to follow up with any questions. And that's it.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I think these presentations are great to really show the value of hubs and how important it is to have a coordinator as well. And I'm already seeing in the chat some discussion and some excitement about starting other hubs. So hopefully there's more to come on that front.
Yes, there's lots of benefits. You just have to work through the steps, but it's just nothing but benefits once you go down that road.
Absolutely. So for the last half hour or so of this program, we'll be asking you a couple more questions through Menti, but we're really trying to get a bit of a discussion going, and we want to hear from you. So we first will start to talk a little bit about other known efforts, and then we'll also go over barriers and needs. Now, Bethany, you at the beginning already briefly spoke about to what degree NABat is aware of the efforts going on in Canada. Before I throw another one of those mentees at people, is there anything else you want to say about that, to talk about other known efforts?
Yeah, I'm not prepared with like any specific lists or numbers. Apologies for that, but we do know, and we're aware just from conversations with some of the people you've heard today, and Tessic McBurney, who was heavily involved in Atlantic Canada, that there are folks that are doing NABat in terms of the protocol. Remember at the beginning I talked about NABat is many things, but they're doing NABat monitoring, but they don't have a project in the database. They haven't selected their cells for survey, and their data aren't coming in for one reason or another. And so just being aware that even that known unknown, we know that the unknown unknowns are probably even bigger. And so we're just trying to expand our understanding of what is the extent of effort in Canada, what are the collaborations that we can help facilitate to, build upon successes from one another and build economies of scale, et cetera. But also come together and like, what are the common set of needs? Is the program centrally responding to them? And so if we don't know who to talk to and who to ask, then we can't get the information. So I guess that's, sorry if that was a bit longer than necessary, but that's my thinking on it so far.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Bethany. We'll before we go into a discussion, because I do see a hand up, let's just, I just want to throw another mentee at you. So as Bethany was saying, there's a lot of unknowns that we don't necessarily know who are doing what. If you haven't contacted us, if you haven't put anything, haven't registered in the database, then we don't know that you might actually have some data sitting there, and then we don't know how to help you. So this here, so if you'd like to go to menti.com again and then fill in the code that you see on the screen now, and then answer this question about whether you've conducted NABat monitoring. If so, have you uploaded data, or the data hasn't been uploaded, or you just haven't but you plan to, or you don't intend to, which is also totally fine. So again, this doesn't show us who is doing what, but it does give us a bit of an idea of where the demographics lie. So it does look like that most of the participants, at least answering now, are conducting NABat monitoring and have uploaded data. So it's pretty much tied now with those that have but haven't uploaded data yet. And then similarly with lower, people who plan to and folks who don't intend to, which is fine as well. And you can also even participate by being passively part of any of the monitoring networks, any of the hubs. There's lots of ways to help there. Yeah, okay, that's great to know. And so again, if you haven't uploaded data to the database and you haven't contacted Bethany or myself at all about this, feel free to even just shoot us an email to just let us know, oh yeah, we're doing this, we intend to upload data. And as well, if you belong to the group of no, I haven't, but I do plan to, let us know what we can do to help. But we'll talk about barriers and needs in a little bit as well. So we'll go to the next question here. So for those who do participate in NABat monitoring, what type of NABat monitoring do you participate in? So Bethany already mentioned that there's much more than just the acoustic surveys. There's acoustics both on stationary and mobile monitoring, but there's also winter and summer colony counts. There's trapping. You could be in a coordination role without doing any of the groundwork yourself. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so lots of stationary point surveys and mobile transects. Great to see. Yeah, thanks everyone for going to this website and filling this out. It's great to see this live being populated. Awesome. Well, and while this is being populated, we do want to open it up for discussion. So especially, actually, there's at least 5 people who say that they're in the other category. So we'd be very curious to hear what type of NABat monitoring that is that we didn't consider in any of the other categories, or if there's any other efforts that you plan to undertake, but that we might not be aware of yet. We'll have about 10-12 minutes or so to discuss this before we move on to barriers and needs. So try to not talk too much about the barriers and the needs yet. For now, we really want to focus on efforts that might be going on that we might not know about. So feel free to put it in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand.
Hi, I do sort of more of a informal acoustic monitoring, and I have to take a look at an NABat and see if that fits in with that. So that's why I picked other as my choice.
Okay, yeah, that's great to hear. And I know that NABat is very receptive to that as well. So definitely reach out to Bethany and Brian to see if in any way your data collection can be used for NABat, because I know they're pretty flexible.
Thanks.
It's Pam Mills with Department of Land or Natural Resources and Renewables in Nova Scotia. I echo the same thing. Is we do some opportunistic surveys related to EAs and things like that for here, for mines and other things. So when I clicked other, it wasn't necessarily NABat, but it's interesting to know that we could possibly put that information that we collect into NABat, yeah.
Thanks, Pam. To make sure that I'm not speaking out of line, Bethany and Brian, can you? Yeah, you're saying in the chat already that you accept it all. I don't know if you want to address anything more. Make sure that I'm not telling a lie here.
Yeah, no, that's totally correct. And just I had put it in the chat because I didn't want to take up time from others, but just really want to confirm that the database is not only accept that follows the survey design and the protocol. The way that we accept the data allows an analyst to parse out if they need a certain data that were collected following the survey design or the protocol that's observable. And so we can accept it all and want to pull it all into one of the benefits we want to provide is pulling together bat monitoring data into one discoverable location where it can be searched and filtered.
And Scott actually put that in the chat just now that, yeah, the more a single platform can be used, the better it is, because the easier it is to get those continental trends, or in this, for Canada's sake, those Canadian national trends between platforms is very, very tricky. And NABat is really doing everything that they can to provide a platform that accommodates all. So maybe it won't accommodate absolutely everyone, but they're doing a heck of a good job to accommodate pretty much anything you can find out there. I see Mandy's hand is up as well.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I was just interested in all the other people who are doing the summer colony counts. And this is something that we have been working on here in BC with the BC annual bat count and submitting that data to NABat. And I'm wondering if other people across the province are doing the same, like from BatWatch, and just how we can tie that all in.
Maybe I can try a quick answer. This is Anouk. For BatWatch, we were restrained by the form that the form was done at the beginning, that we cannot share data that easily. For some of the data in Quebec, we call every participant to be able even to put the data in our provincial endangered species database. So even for that, we had to call separately all the participants, and we got some answers. So the data that will be able to be in the provincial database will be able to be used and sent to NABat, but others, it's really restrained. The first thing the sentence we write at the beginning when we started BatWatch. So now we kind of stuck with that kind of limiting use that we can make, which is only for scientific projects. So maybe we can see what is possible with NABat, but this is the constraint we have with BatWatch. That is how the data are allowed and how we can share it with the as a participant authorization behind it. So and just a quick note, because I have another meeting, but for Quebec, we have send winter data, but I'm planning to be able to send acoustic data very shortly, not for the route because they're very complex, but for the acoustic stationary station that is quite easy to share, I think. So that's the next step for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great segue actually to talk about some barriers and needs. So I hope you can see my screen now. We've got another Menti here so you have to go to menti.com again and fill out a different code. Can you see that screen right now? Or have I lost you?
Yes, we see it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So there's a lot of options here. We just try to provide some of the barriers and needs that we anticipate that people are facing. But there's another category as well, and we're going to flesh it out a little bit more. So on the next slide, we'll give you a chance to actually type out what your other barriers and needs might be. But I think this will give us a good idea of where the NABat team and where we have to work together to really help you out more. This is data analysis, species identification is a big one. Data sharing concerns is also very fair. Access to analyzing software. Yeah, some of the software can be very expensive, although there are free options out there, but then you run into doing manual identification, data formatting for upload. I think that comes back to what Derek was saying as well, that that can be quite a bit of work. Access to monitoring equipment, absolutely, yeah. Bat detectors aren't necessarily very cheap. Okay, yeah, it seems like all the ones that we anticipated are definitely in there for folks, but I'm interested to hear what others are. But yeah, a data analysis is really going through the roof, I guess. Having that capacity to analyze and that understanding, being able to identify your bat species is not an easy thing to do, especially when you get further west where we're dealing with a lot more species. So the next page here is a bit experimental. So you should now be seeing just the text box. So especially if you filled in other barriers, and some of the barriers or needs that we didn't necessarily anticipate, feel free to type them in here. Try to be brief, because I'm not sure what it's going to look like on the screen if we get a whole lot of long stories, but interested in hearing it that way. Also feel free to unmute yourself and talk about it, because we'll have about 10 minutes to discuss this as well. Lack of time, lack of funding resources, cost, yeah, limit of mobile routes, time and money. Okay, this seems to work out pretty well. So while I'm looking at this, I can't see if anyone has their hands up, so just feel free to unmute yourself and chat if there's any barriers or needs you want to discuss further. Landowner confidentiality concerns, that's a good one, yeah. What to do if there is no bat activity. Mm-hmm. So unsure on the process and type of data to submit. Yeah, those are definitely questions that, if those are questions that you have that keep you from conducting NABat monitoring or submitting any data, reach out to me and to Bethany, because those are things that we can address and provide some advice on how to get started. Yeah, seeing things about confidentiality and monitoring on private land. So working with, if you are within a regional hub as well, those are good places to discuss those sorts of things as well. Bethany, are you seeing any things in here that you'd like to address right now while we don't have anyone speaking?
I think that really my response is like all of this is stuff that has been brought up before. These are common concerns that are raised, many of which we are working to find solutions for. And when we take a step back and think about monitoring from a systems thinking perspective, there are a lot of tools or in the toolbox that we use in the process from data collection to information delivery. So you can think about that, everything from your equipment, software, people and labor, and the collating of data, all of that. And then even down to what models you use for analysis. These are all parts of the greater toolbox. And we're trying to take the concerns that are raised and draw lines to, okay, what tool in the toolbox does this relate to, and how do we improve that tool or suite of tools to ease the flow and reduce bottlenecks, all of that. And so things like time, people, funding, and the labor for manual vetting, landowner or land access, all of that. It all also speaks to the need for I would say the value that hubs can provide. And so one of the things that we say on our website is you do not need to be a part of a hub. There's no requirement to be part of a hub to participate in NABat, but it is helpful. It can be useful. And so some of the ways that that's been done in other places is facilitating equipment sharing and sending out, there's some hubs that are sending out kits and boxes and training volunteers. And there's some places in some states in the US Midwest that have really robust volunteer programs. And so there's also opportunity to learn from other regions on how did they stand that up, and what has worked well and what hasn't, and how can we avoid those in perhaps new areas we're going to stand this up. So this is really helpful information to have, and kind of in some places affirming that where we're investing our efforts to improve things is right. But I also want to take some more time afterwards to comb through and see if there's anything in particular that stands out that perhaps we've missed. But yeah, with the remaining time, I'd love to just hear from folks on the phone on, you know, what you want after today. Like, what are you hoping, what would you like the next steps to be that you see would be beneficial for what you're aiming to do, and how do we move forward in terms of facilitating expanded collaboration and all those goals that I think, common set of goals that we may have for bat conservation science. I hope I didn't derail whatever last question you may have had, Jordi.
No, that was great. And yeah, indeed, we Menti will save these results, so Bethany and I can go through them later on and look at them a little more closely and see if there's anything specifically we need to address. I will also, at the same time, I'll put up a slide just to with Bethany's email address and my email address. But yes, discuss, please speak up if you'd like to.
There's one thing that came up in the chat that I just, since I haven't heard anybody yet, I figured I'd just speak to about concerns from landowners about listed species and land management and the attention that could bring. And so one of the tools that we have is the ability to obfuscate location. So we can either, when the data are uploaded, or even if the coordinates are provided, we can obscure that location so it's not shared with others, so that landowner information is not, then you can't draw it back to a specific property boundary. But where the hiccup has come up, where we are still working to solve this particular problem, is when the land property boundary is so large that the current way we obfuscate isn't broad enough. And so there are some places where that still applies. Yeah, there's details in there on whether or not that will work or not, but one way we're trying to address that one. Do folks have any ideas on or recommendations on what you think would be a good next step for this collaborative bat monitoring in Canada, and using the NABat network and tools to perhaps help facilitate that? Today was our goal was just to start some discussion, and love to hear from you on what you would love to see occur.
I'd like to jump in. I don't know if this is within scope for what you're envisioning, but as it was mentioned as one of the challenges is the citizen science collection of data. So I don't know, do you envision it being like, so I'm also work on the national Bat Box project that Kim had talked about with Parks, and Cori also is involved with that as well. So we're getting data from private landowners who are filling out an online survey to then report their roosts and bat counts to us, that we then have, and we're going to use as part of this national project on bat box use. So what's ideal? Is it better, like, should citizens start using NABat to report and add data there, or is it still better to come to us and then we fit the data into the type of database that works for you guys?
So we've talked about this a couple of times. There are some burgeoning efforts related to community science, and really exciting to see those develop. And we've been approached by some different participants or organizers of those efforts on how do we get those data into NABat. And so really the barrier is, particularly when you're working with volunteers and community scientists, the more steps there are, the more cumbersome it is. So we need to make it as easy as possible. Otherwise, it's just going to lead to data loss. They might collect the data or do the count or put out an acoustic detector, but whether we ever see it or not is another question. And so that's something that we're actively working to address. We don't have any tools that are available, like are fully fleshed yet, but we are kind of working out. And I think that the big thing is, or the way I see it is, continue working with those networks and expanding interest and getting those volunteers and community scientists invested in bat monitoring and kind of working on expanding that portion of the toolbox. But I'd like to work together with you or the organizers of those efforts on what are the nature of those data and how do we most efficiently pull them into the database. And we can actually build out a suite of tools or IT infrastructure that enables that. But we need to work in line with those partners that are organizing those efforts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess the difficulty with a lot of that, if people are doing visual surveys, they're not going to have species ID for the most part, which doesn't really help for this, I think.
Correct. Yeah, that's something that came up. We have a working group that it's gone a little quiet now, but we had some really robust discussions last year about the potential for community science with summer roost monitoring. And that was one of the barriers of what do we do if we don't know the species? And we can't expect or can't trust, perhaps, that a community scientist can accurately ID species. And so there's a lot of dependencies, but would love to figure all those out in time. Brian, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, hey, James. I appreciate all the work you guys do to do the human networking for those efforts. I think that's incredibly important to maintain that sort of hand-holding with volunteers, and that's not something that NABat has the capacity or the infrastructure to do. So I think our vision is to work with you and others as sort of a distributed, you could think of it as a distributed hub, right? If you can help consolidate that and maintain those relationships, that's really important. I think as Bethany was saying, we currently have the infrastructure to support the data types that you're collecting, and there's great value to understanding that there's a roost here, even if it's not to species. There's follow-up work that can be done. One of the discussions we've had, with folks in California was, we want to know if somebody reports a bat roost, then biologists can follow up, right? And they can get that baseline information and then follow up and do additional surveys. So just getting that sort of distribution of roosts, even if it's not to species, is sort of the baseline information that is super valuable. We can support that in the database, but we can't support all the thousands of people that are out there working that need immediate assistance and all the sort of handholding you guys provide. So we'd love to work with you to figure out, like, how do you maintain what you're doing, and we can support data transfer in a seamless way, so those data can be uploaded and provided to these continental level analyses, and people can have access, and we can help share that information. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but we'd love, if you've got other questions, we can follow up.
Yeah, that's great. I think, I'll be following up with you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a question from Elizabeth in the chat. Does NABat collaborate with provincial regional conservation data centers, fish and wildlife management information system to obtain bat occurrences from their respective databases? And not that I'm aware of. I don't know that has been that subject has even been broached. Jordi, have you been aware of any interest there?
I know of at least some of our regional databases here, but I have not been part of any discussion of tying in the data in those databases with NABat. That'd be quite a big undertaking, but it's something worth. I'm glad that it's being brought up, because it's something at least worth thinking about, seeing if that's feasible.
Yeah, and a lot of these things, I know we're at time, but a lot of these things that are coming up in the chat, and even the community science question, working with other databases, whether it's an agency database or eBird, for example. What I'll say is it's all possible. Like all of it is possible, but it comes down to do these two data resources or repositories talk well to one another. And so we've constructed the NABat database and the upload templates in a way that meets the needs for status and trends analyses across the continent, and that is also flexible and usable for other things. But it's in some cases, you know, the data that are stored and how they're stored may not translate well, and so it's all in the details. Those kind of details on how well do they match up, and can we transform the data to ingest it, or provide it back. There can be a two-way street. All things great to explore.
Yeah, we are at time indeed, so I want to wrap this up. So first I want to say thank you very much to all of our speakers, Bethany, to you for talking about this and for helping organize, to Mike and Kim and Jessica and Cori and Lisa. I think I covered everyone there. But thanks everyone for tuning in as well and answering through the Menti tool. That's really awesome. So yeah, this webinar has been recorded. We might not have all of your email addresses, but it'll go out at least through my newsletter. I'm sure it's going to be in the NABat newsletter. If you're afraid we might not have your email address, email me and Bethany so that we can make sure you get this recording once it's available. And with any of these things, if you want to discuss it in more detail, because that's not what this town hall platform is for, but contact us, don't hesitate to contact us to discuss anything in more detail, because we're here to help. So again, thank you very much, and happy December and happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you.